to our cozy corner of mystery and camaraderie. If you missed the first part of Luna and Hattie's intriguing journey, you'll find the link to it in the top right corner or down below. Last time, we embarked on a tantalizing tale through the heart of France, unearthing secrets of a forgotten past. With your knitting needles clicking or a cup of hot herbal tea in hand, join us as we continue to weave through the twists and turns of this captivating narrative. Today, we pick up the thread where we left off, diving deeper into the enigmas surrounding Luna's grandmother. Let's unravel the layers of this intriguing story together. Chapter 6: The Rival Town Rendezvous. The back room of La Macaron Mystique was like stepping into an Aladdin's cave of confections, with rows of macaroons that glowed like jewels in a sultan's treasure chest. The baker, a man whose eyes twinkled like stars in a pastry universe, beckoned Hattie and Luna closer. "Here," he said, pulling out a tray of macaroons. "The secret you seek lies in the heart of these almond delights." Luna leaned in, her eyes scanning the tray like a detective at a lineup. "They look ordinary?" "Ah, but in baking, as in life, it's the hidden ingredients that make all the difference," the baker said, his voice as smooth as ganache. Hattie picked up a macaroon, examining it like a jeweler appraising a diamond. "So, we're looking for a secret in a cookie?" "Not just any cookie," the baker corrected. "This macaroon contains the last clue left by Marianne. She was a frequent visitor here, always in search of the perfect almond blend." He pointed to a tiny inscription on the macaroon's base, almost invisible to the untrained eye. "Read this, and you will know where to go next." The inscription was a single line, a cryptic message that read, "To uncover the almond's core, seek the rival's shore." Hattie's eyebrows arched. A rival's shore? This mystery's turning into a culinary cryptogram. Luna tapped the inscription thoughtfully. It must mean a rival bakery, but where? "The rival town," the baker said, his eyes sparkling. "Across the river, where the rivalry in pastries is as old as the cobblestones." Armed with this new clue, Hattie and Luna thanked the baker and set out for the rival town, a place rumored to have croissants so flaky they could cause a diplomatic incident. As they crossed the bridge spanning the river, the town came into view, quaint and picturesque, like a scene from a postcard sent from a more charming era. "The rival shore," Luna said, gazing at the town, "looks more like a painting than a place of pastry warfare." Hattie chuckled. "Never underestimate the ferocity of a baker scorned. Somewhere in this idyllic setting lies the next breadcrumb on our trail." Their search led them to Le Croissant Combattant, a bakery that seemed to wear its rivalry like a badge of honor. The display window boasted croissants so beautiful they could make a grown man weep. Inside, they were greeted by a baker whose mustache was as impressive as his reputation. "Bienvenue, how can I add a little butter to your day?" "We're following a trail of almonds," Hattie said, getting straight to the point. "A clue led us here. Something about a rival's shore?" The baker's eyes narrowed, a flicker of recognition passing over his face. "Ah, the almond's core. You speak of Marianne's legacy." He led them to a corner of the bakery where an old framed newspaper article hung. The headline read, "The Great Pastry Peace Treaty of '54. Rival bakers unite over almond croissant." "Marianne," the baker began, his voice a low hum, "was the bridge between our towns. Her almond croissant recipe ended years of rivalry. It brought peace and it brought a secret." Luna looked at the article, her heart pounding like a mixer on high speed. "A secret? About my grandmother?" "Yes," the baker said, his eyes reflecting the weight of history. "But it's a secret that can only be told during the making of the very croissant that sealed the peace." Chapter 7. Piecing Together the Pie. The kitchen of Le Croissant Combattant was a battleground of baking where flour dusted every surface like a winter's first snow. Hattie and Luna, now honorary soldiers in the pastry wars, were handed aprons and a rolling pin each. First, we make peace with the dough, the baker instructed, his hands moving with the grace of a conductor orchestrating a symphony of yeast and flour. Hattie, rolling her dough with the enthusiasm of a child in a mud pit, couldn't help but quip, "I always knew my path to inner peace would be paved with carbs." Luna, more focused, followed the baker's movements with precision, her rolling pin dancing across the dough like a ballerina on stage. "As we fold the dough, so we fold in the story," the baker said, his voice low and rhythmic. Marianne came to us during the height of our rivalry, a time when croissants were not just pastries, but weapons of culinary one-upmanship. He folded the dough, his hands deft and sure. She saw beyond the butter and the flour. She saw a community torn, and so she proposed a contest, a battle of the bakers, but one that would unite rather than divide. Luna's hands stilled on the dough. "A baking contest? My grandmother did that?" But it was no ordinary contest, the baker continued. It was a contest with a secret ingredient, a pinch of understanding, a dash of respect, and of course, almonds. The air was rich with the scent of baking, a fragrant reminder of the story unfolding. The contest was fierce, but in the end, it was Marianne's almond croissant that won, not for its flakiness, nor its buttery layers, but for its heart. Hattie, her apron now a Jackson Pollock of flour and dough, grinned. So Marianne was the Julia Child of diplomacy. Exactly, the baker smiled. But there was more to her recipe than just almonds and peace. There was a message she left in the heart of her winning croissant. He led them to a chest in the corner, old and worn as if it had seen a century of secrets. From within, he pulled out a yellowed recipe card, the handwriting elegant and flowing. "This," he said, holding the card like a sacred text, "is Marianne's original recipe, and within it you will find the final clue." Luna took the card, her hands trembling slightly. The recipe was detailed, each instruction a testament to Marianne's culinary skill, but it was the footnote that caught Luna's eye. "To those who seek the truth, look not only to the stars but beneath your feet, where the forgotten well lies." "A well?" Luna looked up, her eyes alight with curiosity. "The old well," the baker said, pointing to a faded map on the wall. "Long sealed, but once the source of water for all our baking." Marianne knew its history, its secrets. Armed with the new clue, Hattie and Luna thanked the baker, their minds racing with possibilities. They followed the map through the winding streets of the town, each turn revealing quaint houses and gardens that bloomed with the colors of an artist's palette. Finally, they arrived at a small, overgrown square. In the center, almost hidden by ivy, was the well. Sealed with stone and time, it stood like a sentinel, guarding its secrets. With effort, they cleared the ivy, revealing an inscription on the stone lid. "Beneath the stars, above the earth, here lies the well of truth's birth." Luna's eyes widened. This is it, the final clue. Together they pushed against the stone lid, their muscles straining with the effort. With a groan the lid shifted, revealing a dark abyss below. Peering in, they saw something glinting in the dim light. Hattie, ever the brave soul, reached in, her hand emerging with an object covered in years of dust and mystery. It was a small metal box, ornate and delicate. Carefully they opened it, and inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was a locket. The locket was old, its surface etched with the image of an almond tree. Luna opened the locket, and inside were two photographs, one of Marianne, young and radiant, and the other of a baby with curls as wild as the wind. That's my mother, Luna whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Hattie put an arm around her. Your grandmother left you more than just a trail of breadcrumbs. She left you a legacy, Luna. Chapter 8. A Recipe for Deception. Armed with the locket, the recipe card, and a newfound sense of purpose, Hattie and Luna prepared to leave the quaint French town, but not before indulging in one final culinary delight. A baguette so crusty it could have been used as a weapon in historical pastry battles. Honestly, if I could marry this baguette, I would, Hattie declared, her mouth full as they sat in a small cafe savoring their last moments in France. Luna, the locket clasped in her hand, smiled wistfully. It's been an incredible journey here, but I think it's time we head back to Ohio. We have a family mystery to solve, and I have a feeling the last piece of the puzzle is waiting for us back home. The flight back was a mix of anticipation and impatience, with Hattie's frequent fidgeting and Luna's quiet contemplation. As the plane touched down in Ohio, they both felt a surge of excitement. They were on the home stretch. Their first stop was the local library, a place where the smell of old books was as comforting as a warm blanket. Here they hoped to find more about the town's history and potentially about Luna's grandmother. Ah, the library, Hattie mused, her eyes scanning the rows of books, where mysteries come to get a library card. Luna approached the librarian, a woman who wore her glasses like a badge of scholarly honor. We're researching family histories, particularly about a woman named Marianne Marshall. She lived here in the 50s. The librarian, with the efficiency of a human search engine, led them to the local history section. Marianne Marshall, you say? There was a bit of a scandal involving a Marianne back then. Something about a hidden identity and a love affair, if I recall correctly. Hattie's ears perked up. Scandal, hidden identity, love affair? This story has more layers than a 7-tier cake. Poring through old newspapers and archives, they uncovered a series of articles about a mysterious woman who had captivated the town's attention in the 1950s, Marianne Marshall. She was known for her charm, her elegance, and a secretive nature that had set tongues wagging. And here, Luna pointed to an article, her finger tracing the faded print. It says she suddenly left town, no explanation, no goodbye. It was right after the big town fair where she won the baking contest. Hattie leaned in, her detective senses tingling. A sudden departure, a baking contest victory. Sounds like our Marianne was baking up more than just pies. Their research led them to a surprising revelation. The address of a house Marianne had owned. With renewed energy, they headed to the address, finding themselves in front of a quaint, slightly run-down house that held the echo of past secrets. Looks like this house could tell 1,000 stories, Hattie said as they approached the front door. Inside, the house was a time capsule. Dusty furniture, faded photographs, and an air of nostalgia that hung heavy in each room. Luna found herself drawn to a small study where an old typewriter sat on a desk, a silent sentinel of stories untold. On the desk lay a stack of letters tied with a ribbon that had lost its color to time. Luna carefully untied them, her hands trembling slightly. The letters were from Marianne, addressed to an unknown lover, speaking of a love so deep it had to be hidden from the world. Hattie whistled softly. Our Marianne was quite the romantic, but who was the mystery man? As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow through the dusty windows, Luna found the last piece of the puzzle. A photograph hidden in the back of a drawer. It was of Marianne, radiant as ever, standing beside a man who was the spitting image of the baker they had met in France. Henri, Luna breathed. The French baker was her lover. Chapter 9. The Masquerade of Memories. The revelation of Marianne's secret romance with Henry, the French baker, was like finding a raisin in a cinnamon roll, unexpected but delightfully so. Hattie and Luna sat amidst the relics of the past in the old house, each piece of evidence a thread in the rich tapestry of Marianne's story. Henri and Marianne, Luna mused, tracing the contours of their faces in the photograph. A love story hidden within the folds of flour and sugar. Hattie, ever the romantic at heart, sighed dramatically. Love, mystery, pastries. This story has all the ingredients of a bestseller. We should consider movie rights. Their next step was to dig deeper into Marianne's life in Ohio. The local town hall was a treasure trove of records, and the clerk, a man who seemed to have been born behind the counter, was more than willing to help, especially after Hattie charmed him with a few witty one-liners. "Ah, Marianne Marshall," the clerk said, flipping through an old ledger. "Here she is, moved to town in the early 50s, bought a house, and then, poof, left as mysteriously as she arrived." Luna pored over the documents, property records, utility bills, and even an old library card. She was here, living a life full of secrets, and now we're uncovering them piece by piece. The deeper they delved, the more the picture of Marianne's life in Ohio came into focus. She had been an active member of the community, known for her baking prowess and her enigmatic aura. But why did she leave? Luna pondered, her forehead creased in thought. What made her abandon this life? As they left the town hall, Hattie pointed to an old poster on the bulletin board. "Look at this. A local history fair next weekend. What better place to dig up more dirt on our mysterious Marianne?" The day of the fair arrived with the promise of revelations. The local park was transformed into a bustling tableau of the past, with booths showcasing different eras and aspects of the town's history. Hattie and Luna, disguised in vintage outfits to blend in, wandered among the exhibits, their eyes and ears open for any mention of Marianne. It wasn't long before they stumbled upon a booth dedicated to the town's baking history, complete with black and white photos of past baking contests. And there, in a photo from the 1954 contest, was Marianne, her smile as captivating as it was secretive. A woman at the booth, a historian with a penchant for dramatic storytelling, noticed their interest. "Ah, Marianne Marshall, a woman of mystery, won the contest and then vanished like a ghost. Some say she left to follow a lover, others believe she had a secret life." Luna exchanged a glance with Hattie. The pieces of Marianne's life were coming together, but the edges were still blurred. As the day wore on, they gathered snippets of stories and rumors. Marianne had been the talk of the town, her sudden departure a subject of much speculation. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the fair, Luna felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning, she found herself face to face with an elderly woman, her eyes bright with the wisdom of years. "You're looking for Marianne," the woman said, her voice a whisper of the past. "I knew her. We were friends back in the day." Luna's heart skipped a beat. "You knew my grandmother?" The woman nodded, her gaze distant. Marianne was more than just a baker. She was a woman ahead of her time, with dreams bigger than this small town, but she had a secret, a reason she had to leave. She beckoned them closer, and in hushed tones began to unravel the final threads of Marianne's story, a tale of love, sacrifice, and a hidden identity that had defined her life. Chapter 10. The Masquerade of Memories. The starlit sky above them seemed to twinkle with the secrets of the past, now uncovered. Luna and Hattie stood outside the history fair, the elderly woman's revelation still echoing in their minds. Marianne was more than a baker, more than a lover. She was a woman of mystery and courage. Luna reflected, a sense of awe in her voice. Hattie, leaning against a lamppost, nibbled thoughtfully on a churro she'd snagged from a nearby stall. And to think, all this started with an old photo and a family tree. Genealogy. It's like detective work with more birth certificates and less car chases. Their next stop was to visit the town's oldest bakery, Sweet Wheat, a place where Marianne had often been seen and where many of her recipes were still in use. The bell above the door jingled cheerfully as they entered, a sound that seemed to transport them back in time. The bakery was a warm, inviting space, filled with the comforting aroma of fresh bread and pastries. Behind the counter stood a woman in her late 60s, her hands dusted with flour, her smile as warm as the ovens. "We're here to learn about Marianne Marshall," Luna said, introducing themselves. "We believe she was a regular here." The baker's eyes lit up. "Marianne? Oh, she was a legend around here. Her recipes were like gold. Everyone wanted them, but she kept them close, said they were family secrets." Hattie, her eyes scanning the array of baked goods, interjected, "Did she leave anything behind? Any clues to her recipes or her life?" The baker nodded, motioning for them to follow her to a back room. There, on a dusty shelf, lay a stack of old cookbooks and handwritten notes. "She left these for me," the baker said they were to be opened only by someone who truly understood the art of baking. Luna carefully leafed through the pages, her eyes scanning the meticulous handwriting. Among the recipes and baking tips, she found hints of Marianne's life, notes scribbled in the margins, a dried flower pressed between the pages, a photograph of a young man she didn't recognize. "Who's this?" Luna asked, holding up the photograph. The baker squinted at the picture. "Ah, that's Thomas. He was Marianne's assistant for a while. A quiet fellow, but he could knead dough like nobody's business." Luna and Hattie exchanged a look, another piece of the puzzle. Thomas, a mysterious assistant who had worked closely with Marianne. Leaving the bakery with a box of pastries and a mind full of questions, they decided to track down this Thomas. A visit to the local senior center proved fruitful. Thomas, now in his 80s, was still a resident of the town. Meeting Thomas was like stepping into a living memory. His eyes, though dimmed by age, sparkled with the recollection of his time with Marianne. She was more than a boss. She was a mentor, a friend, Thomas recounted, his voice tinged with nostalgia. But she carried a sadness with her, a weight of a secret life. He told them of the days they spent in the bakery, of Marianne's talent and her passion for baking, and of the moments when she would gaze out the window, lost in a world only she knew. "Marianne left suddenly," Thomas continued. "One day she was there, the next gone. She left me a letter, said she had to leave, that her past had caught up with her." Luna listened, each word adding color to the picture of her grandmother. "Did she say where she was going? Did she mention a man named Henri?" Thomas nodded slowly. "Yes, Henri. She mentioned him in the letter, said he was the love of her life, but that being with him meant leaving everything else behind." As the evening drew to a close, Luna and Hattie left the senior center, the story of Marianne Marshall nearly complete. A woman of talent and mystery who had loved deeply, lived passionately, and left a legacy that had transcended time and place. Returning to Marianne's house, they spent the night poring over the cookbooks and letters, piecing together the final chapters of her story. By dawn, they had a complete picture, a tale of love, loss, and the sacrifices made in the name of both. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us on this part of Luna and Hattie's journey. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more. Your comments are the threads that weave our community together, so feel free to share your thoughts below. Looking for more captivating tales? Check out another story on our channel for more adventures. See you in the next chapter.